Ben Beadle, boss man of the National Residential Landlords Association. Why do shelter pour petrol on the fire of the private rental sector? Talk to me.
So I think, Chris, that it probably suits the environment in which they operate. That said, I talk to shelter very, very regularly, as you would expect me to do. I think between us, actually, the key to resolving some of these issues in the sector are about joint working. We have to work together. But obviously, if you're funded by donations, a powerful headline and
a few grenades and off we go.
Of course, yeah. Look, but I'm not going to get excited every time that things get put out that irritate me. For me, this is about showing landlords in a better light. I'm convinced that the ministry understands the power, or the department as they now are, that I'm convinced that the department understands the role that landlords have to play. I'm convinced that
one in 5 houses are in the private rental sector.
Absolutely.
And there's no money for council houses to build them, is there?
So who else is providing homes? Now, for me, the PRS is a really agile place for homes and investment to give people those much needed homes. But the framework is not broken, I don't think. Yes, of course, the direction of travel is towards greater regulation. We've spoken about landlord redress and registers and abolition of Section 21, but that's not going to cure, some of the fundamental problems that we have in the sector.
Do you think, because, let's be honest, there's plenty of stories out there of bad landlords. What could we as a letting agents do better to tell a better story?
I think telling that story, we did quite a lot of this during the pandemic, actually. The reality is no one's interested if landlords drop food parcels to their vulnerable tenants. But these are the types of things that were happening during the pandemic and continue to happen. I think we have to use the opportunity to talk about the good work that goes on the sector, because if we don't, nobody else is going to do it for us.
And what do you think letting agents could do to help you guys in the NRLA? Because, all letting agents are interested in is collecting the rent, isn't it?
Well, I hope they're interested in a little bit more.
Okay, so that was a bit of a shelter grenade, walking shelter grenade.
Well, I've got that, and I'll throw it back. No, I think we know that there's really good practice out there. We also know there's pockets of bad practice, but let's not focus on the glass being half empty. Let's focus on it being half full. And I think talking up the work that landlords are doing. The figures themselves don't lie. High satisfaction, average tenancy lengths of 4.5 years. If you believed what was going on, you'd think that landlords were giving notices willy-nilly and people were staying a few days. That's not what's happening. And in addition, landlords are very bad at raising their rents, believe it or not. Really, really bad at raising their rents. And what the problem, and it's a problem of our own making, and I'm in this boat, but I won't bore you with my personal story. But if you don't put the rent up after 5 or 6 years, then actually, which is exactly what I've done, actually the rent becomes massively out of kilter with the current with what's being charged. And then you think, well, I'm a couple of £100 behind. I might think about putting my rent up by a significant amount. Now, if you were to follow through on that causes your customer, your tenant, a big problem. Going up a couple of £100 if the rent's £900 is a lot of money. Actually, truth be told, you'd be far better having seasonal incremental 2 or 3% increases to your rent than having one big hit. And so for me, this is about some of the practical stuff that's going on. And actually, we should be grateful that landlords aren't generally increasing their rents,
because they almost build a relationship up with their tenants.
It becomes difficult to do it.
But that's where a good letting agent can come in, because they can be the go-between and actually say it's time to sort your rent up, £30 a month.
That said, I would never lose a tenant over a rent increase.
But do you think there's almost a landlord almost starts to regret his or her tenant because they're not putting the rent up and they're not getting the money's worth out of them, but are afraid that they'll go? But there's plenty of tenants out there, isn't there?
Well, there is, but I don't see that for the most part, Chris, if I'm honest with you, because actually I think for the most part, a few quid here or there isn't going to make a massive amount of difference. It's when it gets to be massively out of scale that landlords will start thinking about it. But also, sometimes the money isn't the primary driver for why the landlord is doing what they're doing. Actually, they might just be really happy with the long-term tenancy. The capital appreciation is going in the right sort of direction. A few quid here or there doesn't make a great deal of difference. And I think, back to your original question, in terms of pouring petrol on the fire, I think for me there are some of these things that just get overlooked in the sector. We're so focused on big rent increases, or we're so focused on Section 21 that actually we overlook the amazing work that landlords do.
We need to tell a better story.
We do need to
and
tell
landlords
a
need
better
to tell a better story. You guys at the NRLA need to tell a better story, and more importantly, you guys in letting agency land also need to tell a better story. Thank you for your time today, Ben.
Thank you.